Hello viewers and welcome to another match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I have the opportunity to present a game featuring not one but two upcoming proxied warlords. At the bottom of our screen we see one of our Death World cycle warlords. It is Grigory Maksim, who was recently unveiled in the article Slash and Burn. And at the top of our screen, we see Talyesin Fharenal. She's going to come out in the 6th and final war pack of the Planetfall cycle of war packs, the Final Gambit. But both of our players are in the process of deciding whether or not they want to keep their opening hands. Looks like Eric Keilback at the bottom of our screen did decide to take a mulligan, and Guy Lev at the top did not. So Guy is going to start off today's game holding our initiative token, and his opening play is going to be throwing out a copy of Warlock Destructor to planet number 1. So that's a pretty competent early game combat unit. For Grigory, we actually see his signature support as his opening deploys, so it's called Clearing the Path, and whenever he happens to win a battle at a planet where he sends his warlord, he can take an Astra Militarum support card from his discard pile and put it into play at his HQ. And considering he's got troop transport in hand, that could be a potentially fantastic effect to throw troop transport out onto the tabletop as his one limited card, and then he can detonate that at planet number 1 or 4 or 5, all green planets, in order to get 2 1/2 soldier trait guardsman tokens, and then if he wins a battle at a planet where he sends his warlord, he'll be able to bring that back into play, and then he can just detonate it again immediately. But another support for Grigory here, we've got the faction-specific army unit resource cost reducer. It's going to be the unique 1-cost Imperial Bunker. This is a limited card, so he's not going to be able to play this in conjunction with troop transport, but he is going to be able to decrease the cost of his AM units by 1, and there's no limit to that effect, so that's actually pretty fantastic. Back on our Eldar players' side of the tabletop, Talyesin is going to pick up a copy of her Autarch Power Sword. It's going to be her signature attachment, and the way that this works is it's going to basically just give her +1 attack and +1 HP. So it modifies her to being a 3/7 warlord, and further, I suppose her printed ability here is that whenever she's at a planet, if you control a warrior or psyker at that same location, they get a +1 hit point bonus, and if you control both a psyker and a warrior, then they also get a +1 attack bonus. So it's going to be a careful bit of a juggling act, whether or not you actually want to have her at a planet and win, just because she's reasonably fragile, but she does have a very powerful ability. Eric went ahead and put out a copy of Leman Russ Battle Tank at planet number 1 for the modified cost of 4, courtesy of the Imperial Bunker. This is a 4 command icon 4/6, and it actually picks up a copy of Dozer Blade, so that hardpoint attachment is going to give it a +2 HP bonus, so it's currently a whopping 4/8 unit. And Grigory himself, his ability is whenever you have a unit taking damage, you can use support cards as shields, and they have a value of 1, just 1 shield icon, and whenever you're shielding a tank like this Leman Russ, any support like the Inquisitorial Fortress, the troop transport, they actually count as though they had 2 shields. So that's a pretty fascinating little effect, and it just opens up a whole host of new opportunities for just really any kind of deck, but I suppose specifically the Astra Militarum. So, both of our warlords are going to be arriving at planet number 2, and what kind of sucks about this is Grigory is a 1/7, and Talyesin is a 3/7, so something tells me he's not going to be faring too terribly well in this conflict. We've got an Incubus Warrior at planet number 3, we've got a copy of Bealtan Guardians at planet number 5, and therefore that's just going to be 1 resource for Eric, and it's going to be 4 cards and no resources for Guy. So Eric, really the only stuff relevant to combat that he has, Grigory, at the bottom of our screen here, is he's got two shield value supports. Let's see, we've got the initiative token is going to be in the possession of Taliesin, so looks like Eric was a little bit prematurely excited to take a shot with his tank. The Warlock Destructor is going to have an opportunity to attack first, so that'll be 3 points of damage going out to the Leman Russ battle tank, and let's see what, if anything, Whiteblade discards as shields. It's not looking like he's going to be able to benefit from his signature support this turn, so he does not decide to discard any of these supports that could be subsequently returned to play. The Leman Russ does take 3 points of damage, and now it's going to attack in return for 4. Are we going to see anything discarded by our Eldar player? Note that Glaive Guy only has 1 resource, which is insufficient to activate Archon's Terror. Looks like his unit is going to be killed, and now I can't imagine that Eric is going to be triggering Yvarn just to get out his Iron Guard recruits there, but let us see. We've got a signature card here in Taliesin's hand. This is going to be, she's got 2 different signature army units. One is Taliesin's Warlocks, and one is Taliesin's Spiders. She has 2 copies of each. Taliesin's Warlocks are a 3/2 for 3, and you can discard warrior cards from hand in order to ready it, and you can only do that once per combat round, but getting 2 attacks is a spectacular bit of action advantage, and Taliesin is all about warrior and psyker synergy. And then, of course, Grigory, it kind of goes without saying, is all about being a rather significant tank commander. So there's the final gambit, there's Unforgiven, and then there's also the Jungles of Nectivus. These are all war packs that are going to come out between the time that I'm recording this video and the time that Grigory is actually going to be released. So his ability only really benefits tanks, but I can only imagine we'll see more and more tanks in time. So Grigory took a swing from Taliesin, value of 3. We saw Inquisitorial Fortress discarded as a shield. His ability can affect himself, but it's only going to be a 1-value shield card, and Taliesin did manage to win at that planet. She just got the 1 swing in on Grigory, and Grigory only managed to hit her for 1 as well. So Taliesin retreats, Grigory retreats. Farron's battle ability was triggered, but, well, I guess it was not triggered because we didn't see any unit routed. I was going to say there'd be no point to triggering it because there are no enemy units to eject, but we've got an HQ phase having passed. That's 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players. Our new 5th planet is going to be Planum, and Eric has put out his copy of Troop Transport in his HQ. Something that Grigory may likely struggle with is economy, and I guess we'll have to see how things end up going for Eric. He's going to have to use these Iron Guard recruits and Rogue Trader just to try to get as many cards as possible, because he is definitely looking like he might be struggling. He did manage to get a green and a blue and a red icon from winning at the Tricon Yvarn, but it's going to be up to, like, if he can win planet number 1 and then planet number 3, he could win through that, or if he's going to be able to pick up 2 and 5 or 3 and 4. He's got a lot of options, but he's going to have to be very careful that Taliesin doesn't completely just run amok with some incredible economy. And even though this Leman Russ battle tank is pretty strong, without Grigory's signature attachment, the Spotlight, where you can exhaust your warlord to move a vehicle unit from planet to planet, the Leman Russ showing up exhausted kind of sucks, and then further, Archon's Terror makes it even more difficult for Grigory to try and establish any kind of foothold for himself. And remember, Troop Transport only does its double token generating effect at a green planet, and we don't actually see green planets until 3 through 5. But we do see a copy of Taliesin's Warlocks being played to planet number 1. They're going to be able to potentially attack twice if we see a Leman Russ sent to planet number 1 alongside Grigory. And looks like we've got one of our scarcely few tanks, like it's the Mordian Hellhound, the Leman Russ battle tank, and then the Land Raider are all the tanks that we see thus far. And, hopefully there'll be more to come soon, but the Mordian Hellhound is going to be sitting here at planet number 1 thanks to the Imperial Bunker. I'm sorry. I think earlier I said the Imperial Bunker had no limit to the number of cards it could affect, but clearly it says right there on it you have to exhaust the support to reduce that unit's cost, so I apologize for misspeaking. But the Mordian Hellhound is going to be a 3/3 with 2 command icons. It's going to be sitting there at that planet. It will have initiative. It will maybe be able to kill Taliesin's Warlocks, but Gift of Isha is a thing, and of course the Archon's Terror is a thing as well. Looks like in regard to signature cards, we see something new for Taliesin. This is going to be Wisdom of the Serpent. So for the cost of 1, as an HQ action, you can exhaust that support, choose either a Psyker or Warrior, then you look at the top 3 cards of your deck for whatever trait you picked, you look for a unit of that kind, you reveal it, and then you've got the opportunity to do that. So let me go ahead and correct our players really quick and just remind them that it's an HQ action. And then as soon as he kind of cancels that effect, we can move on. One of the complicating things about this is Eric Keilback doesn't actually have the opportunity to see any of these proxied cards. He's just going off of I believe, pen and paper notes, and since Guy Lev at the top of the screen does happen to be an Octagon subscriber, I believe that he does actually see these card images in front of him. But unfortunately, with so many new cards just here on the tabletop, we'll have to forgive our dear player for a little bit of a slip up there. So instead of that action, Guy's only got 1 resource remaining, and quite wisely, he uses that to fund a copy of Slith Mercenary. So that's going to be 3 command icons at planet number 1, beating the 2 that Eric has out of that planet. And now Eric is only going to have 1 resource left, and he's basically forced to pass. He doesn't have anything else to do. Our Eldar player doesn't have any 0 resource effects, like there's no promotion or anything along those lines to use. And now both of our players are going to decide where exactly they want to send their warlords. So let's see. I think at planet number 1, we could rest reasonably certain that our Eldar player is going to be able to win out at that planet. So Taliesin might end up going to, say, planet number 3 just to pick off this rogue trader. Or I suppose we could even see... Well, you know, I guess I could see Grigory maybe showing up at planet number 1, just because if Fharenal is won by Taliesin, then that is going to suck, because Fharenal could rout that Leman Russ, and Grigory up against this Incubus Warrior here, that's actually looking a little bit frightening for him, just because, you know, it's going to be able to swing for a possible 3, but in regard to command struggles, looks like Taliesin's going to come out ahead on just planets 1 and 4, and then Grigory is instead going to win at planets 2 and 3. So that's going to be 2 cards and 2 resources for Glaive Guy. And then it looks like that's going to be 3 cards and 1 resource for White Blade at the bottom of the screen, our Eric K player. So, Eric says he needs to check traits, and that's quite wise for him to do that, because while Taliesin is sitting at planet number 1, we've got a warrior and we've got a psyker. So this is going to be a 3/3 mercenary, and it's going to be a currently 4/3 warlock. So I'm just going to go ahead and say warrior and psyker present to help him out there, because Taliesin's ability is active. She is currently a 3/6. The mercenary is a 3/3. Taliesin's warlocks are a 4/3 that, if you discard a warrior card, they can potentially attack twice. So looks like we just see that Mordian Hellhound outright destroyed, and that is going to be added to the discard pile of Eric there. I guess in Eric's hand, he did come across a copy of the signature army unit Maxim Squadron, 3 cost 2/3 with a command icon, and whenever you use a shield card to prevent it from taking damage, it gains 1 shield icon. So if you discard a support to block damage dealt to Maxim Squadron, that's basically going to count as a 3 shield value card, which is great, but this is a little expensive as a 3 cost 2/3. Fharenal is going to be captured by Taliesin, and that is going to result in this Leman Russ battle tank being successfully routed, and now Grigory is looking like he's in a little bit of a sticky situation. So yeah, Grigory is only going to be able to attack for 1, and that is going to be a copy of Nullify discarded. Now it's going to be the Incubus Warrior having an opportunity to take a shot at Grigory. We do see a copy of Dozer Blade discarded, but that is still going to be 2 points of damage dealt out to Grigory. So I'm going to go ahead and say, if Grigory is bloodied, let's call him a 1/6. All right, so Troop Transport is going to have been sacrificed. That's going to result in a Guardsman token being generated at that planet. Unfortunately, it's not a green planet, so therefore Grigory isn't going to have the opportunity to put 2 of those in play, but now this Guardsman token is potentially going to be able to clear off that Incubus Warrior, and the instant that it does manage to kill off that DE unit, that means we're going to be able to see Clearing the Path trigger, and that's going to be an Astra Militarum faction support card being put into play. But it looks like I maybe spoke too soon, because Guy had come across a fair few resources. That is going to be a copy of Warlock Destructor being returned to play by Gift of Isha, so that battle has not been won yet. And now we are about to see just that. That is going to be a bloodied Grigory Maksim. So man, that is a little bit rough. And just to give you a peek behind the curtains here, this is actually a copy of Colonel Strachan we're using. So that is going to be a 1/6 bloodied Warlord, and now at the end of the combat, the Guardsman token is going to retreat. The Warlock Destructor persists until the end of the phase, so it's going to be able to win the battle at Eluith there, and that's going to be an opportunity for Talyesin to look at the top 3 cards of her deck, add one of those cards to her hand, and then just put the remaining 2 on the bottom of her deck. That's going to be the only battle that we're going to be seeing this round, and now that's just going to be extraordinarily difficult for poor Grigory here to try to come back from this one. So I guess supports, which his deck, I would imagine, is kind of built centered around, he's no longer going to be able to discard those with any kind of shield value, because we're guessing on his bloodied stats, and we're also guessing that he loses his ability on his bloodied side, just because that's a trend we've seen on each and every other Warlord thus far. But Taliesin is looking great economically. She's got a lot of cards in hand, a lot of cheap economy units like another Bealtan Guardians, another Void Pirate, and it looks like Eric was actually kind enough to remind Guy to use this Wisdom of the Serpent. So I believe a round had perhaps past in which we had not used this card, or perhaps this is the first time it's been on the screen here. And again, for these little mistakes, I do ask your understanding, my dear viewers, just because it's a little bit of a treat being able to do these proxy matches, and they don't always go over error-free. But Wisdom of the Serpent, Guy called out Warrior. He found a copy of Slith Mercenary. He had to reveal it and add it to his hand. He put the remaining 2 cards on the bottom of his deck, and Wisdom of the Serpent there kind of acts as a conditional Eluith. So it looks like we're about ready to end our turn, and now let's hope for Grigory's sake that he's going to be able to come across something rather powerful indeed. We see another signature card. This is going to be pretty interesting. The Leman Russ is going to be showing up at a planet exhausted, but the signature event here, Keep Firing, allows you, for the cost of 1 resource, to ready a target tank unit you control. So you could do a double shot with the Leman Battle Russ, or it could arrive at a planet, and then you could use Keep Firing to ready it, and then attack unexpectedly out at your opponent. Eric's got a copy of Ingenseer Augur, which unfortunately it does facilitate him getting supports into play, but it doesn't exactly, contribute to his economy. Maxim's Squadron is a little bit expensive, but we could see the Squadron, the Rogue Trader, and the Iron Guard recruits all put out. At planet number 5, our latest planet upon the tabletop here is going to be Karnath, the trigger any battle ability planet, and we've got a Rogue Trader put out to planet number 4 by Eric, and unfortunately a Bealtan Guardians is going to shut off its +1 resource bonus. Similarly, We now have an Iron Guard Recruits that's going to be 2 command icons beating the 1 attached to this Void Pirate. And now what else are we going to see for Eric, if anything? We could see Maxim Squadron possibly put out to planet number 1. Talyesin is going to be showing up with a couple units in tow. Glaive Guy currently only has the 1 red material type icon, but that would mean he'd have to win at planets number 2 and at planets number 5 just to take home the game here. And it's looking like this may be just kind of an interesting uphill battle for Grigory, just because the Eldar economy is looking so powerful. We've got a copy of Warlock Destructor being put out to planet number 1. Of course, the Destructor that had been in play from Gift of Isha is, removed because Gift of Isha only keeps it alive until the end of the phase. Maxim Squadron, for more resources than the Warlock Destructor, is going to be a 2-3 as opposed to a 3-4. They both have a command icon, but the Warlock Destructor definitely wins. It can potentially kill the Squadron in a single swing, whereas the Squadron has to take at least 2 to get rid of the Destructor. The Destructor is a Psyker, which could work great with Talyesin. And I guess let's just see where exactly our respective players decide to send their warlords. So we're playing as though Grigory still has 6 hit points remaining, and just, in the comment section of this video, because obviously things aren't going great for Grigory at the moment, be sure to let us know how you would construct a Grigory deck, even though he does have 3 more war packs coming out by the time that, he'll actually be released. So his card pool is going to be significantly deeper than what we're seeing in this match today. But how would you build for Grigory, and what kind of strategy would you use with him? And then the same thing goes for Talyesin. So it looks like Talyesin is actually playing a rather long game here. She's going to be sending herself to planet number 5 to shut off this Iron Guard Recruits, presumably easily score a kill on that unit. And Grigory instead is going to be arriving at planet number 3, where he's potentially going to be able to use Clearing the Path to return something like troop transport to play, courtesy of his support, and he'll be able to kill the Bealtan Guardians and then also activate Barless to do a forced random card discard here. So in regard to command phase, we see 3 cards and 2 resources for Glaive Guy, and we see 3 cards and 1 resource for Whiteblade. So Whiteblade's got another copy of Dozer Blade. I suppose that makes sense based on the similarity to his name there. He's got a preemptive barrage, which could actually be great in conjunction with Keep Firing, like your big tank, snaps off a shot for 4 at ranged, and then you ready it, and then it fires again, and then whatever ranged units you have at that planet also have an opportunity to fire. And I suppose Grigory, out of all the warlords we've seen thus far, it may not really be that offensive for him to be bloodied, because unless he drops to like a 0 attack warlord or something, which I don't think is going to be tremendously likely, you don't really need that much benefit from his ability. But at planet number 1, we've got combat breaking out. The Warlock Destructor is going to take a swing at the Maxim Squadron. He actually should take 0 damage. Should have 0 damage, because we saw a 2-value shield card discarded, and Maxim Squadron increases that thanks to its interrupt to a total of like 3 shields. So I'm going to clarify to Whiteblade that, yep, that applies to all shields. So a 2-shield card used to prevent Maxim Squadron from taking damage, it's going to count as a 3-shield value card. So again, it's not the most offensive unit in the world, but it's got significant built-in defensive value. So Maxim Squadron takes a shot. That Warlock Destructor now has 2 points of damage, but there are a fair few tricks in the hand of our Eldar player that he could use to kind of alter combat for him. He's got his signature event, Path of the Leader, so for the cost of 0, he can either gain a resource. He's already got enough to pay for Archon's Terror, but, if he had 1 resource, he could use this, then he could use Archon's Terror. He could have a Warrior, gain +1 attack, which this isn't a Warrior, so it doesn't matter, or he could exhaust a Psyker to move it from this planet to any other planet. Let's see, what exactly is he doing? So, looks okay. Oh, I see what he's doing. Okay, so Guy discards a copy of Slith Mercenary to ready Taliesin's Warlocks. And now I can only imagine he's going to be using Path of the Leader to exhaust the Taliesin's Warlocks to move them to planet number 1. And they're going to be able to attack for 3, but then that's kind of sort of going to guarantee that he'll be able to win that planet. So I guess let's see. That was kind of an interesting choice here that he decided to do that because they've got to exhaust. So I would imagine that it would have been better for him to do that at the end of a combat round, but again, if he doesn't perhaps have these cards in front of him, maybe he doesn't have all the information that I've got. But the Warlock Destructor is going to take a swing of 3, and we see a Dozer Blade discarded as a shield, so therefore they're only going to take a single point of damage from the Warlock Destructor, and now this is going to be a great opportunity for Maksim's squadron to potentially kill off the Destructor, but he could just as easily discard Path of the Leader to preserve his Destructor, and then if it only has 1 hit point remaining, it's regardless going to be able to continue attacking, although I suppose Whiteblade could use this copy of Keep Firing to make sure that his Maksim squadron is going to be able to continue attacking. I guess in a worst case scenario, Glaive Guy could use his copy of Archon's Terror to remove that unit. Looks like Eric does use that copy of Keep Firing after we see a Nullify discarded as a shield, and now Maksim's squadron is going to be able to attack one more time and potentially kill off that Warlock Destructor. Something else I would not have been surprised to see would have been this Shuriken Catapult being, for the cost of 2, ambushed into... Well, I'm sorry, I guess it has to be on a Warrior Army unit, so I misspoke. Of course, the Warlock Destructor is not eligible for that effect. Maksim's squadron fires again. That is going to be a dead copy of Warlock Destructor, and it looks like for Taliesin's Warlocks, are we going to see a copy of Path of the Leader relocated or not? Looks like that is not the case because both of our players have passed on their actions, and that's going to be Eloith captured successfully by Whiteblade there, so he's now sitting at 2 blue technology icons, and now it's going to be of paramount importance that Taliesin manages to block Eric from being able to potentially win the game at our soon-to-be first planet of the following round. But before that happens, we've got a copy of Bealtan Guardians here opposite Grigory, opposite a Guardsman token, opposite a Leman Russ battle tank, and I can't really imagine that that Guardian is going to be able to do much, but if it manages to survive an attack from Grigory, what we could see is we could have Shuriken Catapult dropped onto the Bealtan Guardians, and then it could attack Grigory for 4, and the instant we see a Warlord death, then that is going to be the end there. Interestingly, we see Archon's Terror discarded as a shield, as opposed to Path of the Leader, which I can only imagine we're going to be seeing perhaps used to move this to our soon-to-be first planet. All right, there we go. That's going to be 2 cost for the Shuriken Catapult, and now the Bealtan Guardians are going to be able to attack for 4. Eric doesn't have any shield cards left, and therefore that is going to be a huge amount of damage going out to Grigory, and he's only going to have 2 hit points remaining, and Iridial is the healing planet, but it's basically going to say like Grigory will have the initiative at planet number 1, but if he shows up at that combat, like if during the following round Grigory arrives at planet number 1, he'll bring his Leman Russ. Well, no, the Leman Russ is going to be sitting here at this planet unless we see it retreat at the end of a combat round. And doesn't this about suck? Now we see that copy of Path of the Leader, so the Taliesin's Warlocks exhaust, and now... Oh, God, that about sucks. That is going to be the GG right there. So, wow, I totally spaced that one. Path of the Leader, you exhaust the Warlocks to move them to planet number 3, and then once they arrive, limit once per combat round, you can discard a warrior in order to... Wow, yeah, you can discard a warrior in order to ready them, and they're readied, and then they take a swing, and that is going to be 3 points of damage. So that's going to be 7 damage on Grigory, and that is going to be the game right there. So, GG, good game. Congratulations to Guy Lev for managing to pilot Talyesin Fharenal to victory against our latest, to be, well, unveiled, proxied Astra Militarum Warlord Grigory Maksim. So, my dear viewers, I very much appreciate your understanding for a fair few mistakes and misunderstandings that were made during this proxied Warlord game, but if you're anything like me, you're definitely looking forward to Talyesin Fharenal to be released in the final gambit, and you're most definitely excited for the release of Grigory Maksim in the upcoming third war pack of the Death World Cycle Slash and Burn. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel if you've not done so already. Please leave a comment letting me know what you thought of the gameplay and strategy of each of these players, how you would personally deck build for Talyesin, and how you might deck build for Grigory Maksim. Again, I just definitely want to remind you that there are 3 war packs coming out between now and the time that Grigory eventually sees his release, so I can only imagine that he'll be getting a fair few additional tools for him to use, but regardless, this was a hell of a game. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you ever want to get in touch with me, I would definitely encourage you to do so on Twitter or on Facebook, and if you ever want to give back to the Hive Tyrant channel, I would be absolutely honored, humbled, and deeply appreciative were you to make a donation to my Patreon page, because even $1 donated on a strictly monthly basis nevertheless does wonders in helping me to recover some of my file hosting and operating expenses. So, once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.